Mr. Paul Ross, how are you today?
Well, thank you. I promise. Breakneck action, high adventure, round after round of persuasion and sales breakthrough wizardry, and overall charm that is unmatched throughout the world.
That's amazing, man. Well,
No
well, I the
modesty.
yeah. So when this one came through, as I told you previous to this, the name Paul Ross didn't immediately ring a bell, but when I read Ross Jeffries, that meant a lot to me. So why don't you tell people who's Paul Ross, who's Ross Jeffries, and then I would love to go way, way, way back to the beginning and kind of understand how you got into this unique field.
Well, let's start with who is Ross Jeffries.
Yeah.
So, Ross Jeffries is a character I created all the way back in 1988 because, can I go a little outside the polite family language?
Please, please. This is
As a young man,
NC-17.
as a man in my late 20s, I could not get laid in a woman's prison with a fistful of pardons. I tried. I tried prayer. I tried magic with a K. You name it. I was always the big buddy, the friend, the brother, the shoulder to cry on, the emotional tampon, as I say. But I couldn't get anywhere.
Mm.
And so I
Where
stumbled
were you
upon.
where were you living, Ross, at
I
that
was
point in time?
living in
Oh,
Los Angeles, California.
all right. Well,
Uh,
LA, there's some beautiful girls out there. You had to be able to
yeah.
find one or two of them, right?
Have you ever heard the phrase "water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink"?
Yes, certainly.
That was me. So I stumbled on my mentor, Richard Bandler, who is the co-creator of Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Okay.
I don't know how deeply you want to dive into NLP, but essentially it is two things. It's a model for looking at human excellence, extracting out the elements of that, breaking it down into its component parts, and then teaching other people how to take it on. And then the other
Okay.
thing is a model for using language to create hypnotic effects, to put people in states of deep focus, deep suggestibility. Some
Mhm.
would say compliance. There are ways to create compliance, which is a very controversial thing we'll get into. And so I
Mhm.
discovered that by using this stuff, I could actually get women who used to be out of my league. And about 15 years in, I started getting these emails from clients or former students of my speed seduction stuff.
Mm.
And they would say, I built a beautiful family and met my wife using your skill sets that you taught me. And now I'm using it in business, and my sales have gone up 30, 40, 50%. They've tripled, they've quadrupled. And I'm not only got laid using your stuff, now I'm getting paid using your stuff. So I went
Mm.
into my mad scientist language lab and took a year mapping this over to sales. And I began training anyone who I could get my hands on. I mean, anyone. People would call me on the phone trying to sell me stuff. I would sell them back on getting into some very, at the beginning, low price coaching. Listen, I wanted to experiment on and with anybody and everybody I could. And as the years grew, I began to refine it to the point where now I only work with people who are at the top 10% of the game, maybe 20%. But here's the distinction: they've hit a wall. The stuff that used to work and make and bring big results is now barely moving the needle. We can go into that. And so they're
Mhm.
feeling that frustration, hitting that ceiling, and they're wondering what's going on, what's wrong, and they're ready to bust past that, reassert their dominance in the market, and get back to where they actually go where they really want to be in a relatively short amount of time. So that's who I work with now, but it's a process that evolved. Paul Ross is the person that created Ross Jeffries and is now doing the selling stuff today. And also, parenthetically, I do some healing work using
Mm.
hypnosis and some other techniques with people.
Okay, so you find NLP, and this is like you said, what, 25, 30 years ago? Is is
About
it was
30
that
years.
okay, so was that like at all in the mainstream consciousness at that point in time, or was this some weird thing that you heard about somewhere and you went, "Huh, I'll look into this."
My introduction to it was very strange. I read Tony Robbins' first book, threw it. I used to live in front of a storm drain, and I threw it into the storm drain. I thought it was crap. Then I got invited to an NLP seminar in San Diego, where parenthetically I live today. And so I went down there, and Richard Bandler was doing the stage hypnosis show at night at the end of one of the seminar days for
Mhm.
entertainment. I went up there. I got hypnotized by a different hypnotist who was also doing the show.
Mm.
And he trained me to say, he gave me the suggestion whenever Richard says the word Nicaragua, you're going to jump up, go right in his face, and call him an asshole. And that's what I did.
What do you remember about that
Now,
specific, like,
well,
interaction?
I remembered that, but what I didn't remember, and I only remembered 20 years later, was that Richard apparently took me backstage, dropped me into a deep trance, and told me that I would take NLP in a completely new direction that no one else had done before and become very rich and very famous in the process. And he
Whoa.
gave me amnesia for it. Now, here's how I found out that this is true. Back in 1998, Rolling Stone did a feature story on me. Like I got not the cover, but I was one of the feature stories.
Mhm.
And the reporter, Eric Hedegaard, wanted to find out about about he wanted to interview Richard Bandler,
Mhm.
but Richard wouldn't do it. So I said, interview Richard's co-trainer, John Laval. He calls John Laval. John Laval tells him this story because John was there that night. And as soon as Eric called me and told me that story, I remembered the whole thing. The amnesia went away, and I
Whoa.
remembered that suggestion. And I said to John, what is up with this? What the F? He said, the boss, Richard, has had his eye on you for over a decade. Watch how your career blossoms now because he approves of what you're doing. That's the power of trance. And I experienced it firsthand from a master.
Whoa. Whoa. So, he was kinda doing this, like, making some money, but almost like an entertainment type thing. Was it ever
No, no,
being
no, no,
appli
no, 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 no. Let me correct you.
'Kay.
Just for shits and giggles, at the end of one day of one seminar, they decided for fun to do a stage hypnosis
I
show.
see.
No, no, no. Richard and his partner John Grinder had been doing NLP, I believe, since the mid '70s, and really pushing the frontiers of what you could do with conversational hypnosis.
Hmm.
And so they modeled three people. They modeled Virginia Satir, very world famous marriage and family counselor, Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy, and the real influence on NLP, Milton Erickson, uh, who was a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, and revolutionized hypnosis. He was to hypnosis what Einstein was to physics,
Mm.
or what Beethoven was to music. He made it entirely conversational. So you could slip this in to what sounds like a normal, ordinary conversation, but in fact, it's loaded with suggestions to shape the responses of the subconscious or unconscious mind. Now, being a hypnotist, I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. They mean the same thing.
Mm, interesting. So at that
Yeah.
point, you kind of go to this seminar and you have this interaction. When do you start to say like, okay, this is like serious. I can actually apply some of this to my
Well,
general life.
well, I went to many of Richard's seminars,
Mhm.
and I embarrassingly wrote my first book in 1988, How to Get the Women You Desire into Bed. A down and dirty guy. I can hear the women in the audience tuning out. How to Get the Women You Desire into Bed, a down and dirty guide to dating and seduction for the man who's fed up with being Mr. Nice Guy, where
Mm,
I applied a very vulgar, angry book, but it was filled with stuff that actually worked. And so I began to apply it there practically, and just through a lot of practice, through training men in these techniques, I became the kind of teacher they needed me to be to create that kind of change, including learning a lot of healing work through hypnosis, NLP, and later, towards the very end of that career, I retired from it 3 years ago, things like dialectical behavior therapy, mindfulness meditation, vipassana, and some other techniques I taught.
mm. So did you experiment with these techniques before you wrote the book, or was it like I'm going to write this book and then by definition I have to continue to get better at this?
No, no. Both. It was simultaneously.
Mm.
Not, you understand?
So was there some sort of a watershed moment for you that like you had some sort of an interaction with a woman and you go, "Holy cow, this just worked." Like,
Yes, yes, yes. So I
mm,
was working as a litigation paralegal for a
okay.
sole practitioner, and he was out of town on a business trip. The secretary had quit, and he was looking to hire a secretary. And he said, "You know, Paul, I trust your judgment. Interview people, whoever you want to hire them."
Mm,
So I'll never forget, a blonde girl named Megan comes in and we start talking. And I think, hey, genius, start testing this stuff on her.
mm,
So I'm noticing I'm breathing in time with her breathing, which is a powerful rapport technique. I'm dropping in some sexual innuendo. And I said, you know what? You're hired. I'm hungry. Let's go have some dinner. So I'm working routines on her. I'm running game on her. And this is a bizarre story. Again, the women are either going to tune out or take a breath, stop, and feel a sense of growing focus only as fast as you recognize something powerful is here. I want to continue listening carefully. Did you catch that?
yeah.
So, anyway, uh, I could see her pupils dilating and nipples erecting. And at one point, she couldn't speak. She went, "Oh my God, my tongue went numb."
Hmm.
Now, in NLP, we call this, in NLP and hypnosis, we call this organ language or somaticizing a response. The body, the unconscious mind is having a powerful response, so it's somaticized into the body. And
Mm,
she said, "Oh my God, my tongue is numb." And I said, "Well, that means your tongue has a message for me. What is your message?" She said, she leaned over and she said, "I want to vote with beep." I'm not going to say the word, but you, and so I said, okay. We went back to the boss's office, and there on my boss's desk, I broke a involuntary celibacy streak that had gone on for years. And that was when I went, holy shit, I got to meet the genius who created this stuff. And my sense of reality turned inside out, Alex. I
mm,
remember having a sense of the world is not real. I got lost on the freeway. If you've
mm,
ever driven in Los Angeles, we don't go by miles, we go by time. I've been driving 30 minutes. It must mean. So I experienced what they call in hypnosis and NLP time dilation,
mhm,
where 15 minutes, where 30 minutes actually seemed like 10. I got
mhm,
lost on the freeway, wound up taking what should have been a 10-minute drive, lasted actually about a clock, an hour. It seemed unreal for a couple of days, and this is very common for my uh, seduction students to experience. It's not the placebo effect, but which, by the way, has its own interesting deep dive, because my students throughout the years don't believe it's going to work,
mhm.
and they're shocked the first few times it does. In fact, they're so shocked. I It's not that uncommon for them to say, I couldn't perform. I was so shocked.
Okay, so wow. So you have this experience and you're almost like in a daze that you can't believe it. So like
Yeah.
what happens at that point in time? Are you like I got to dedicate more of my life to this, or are you like wow,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
interesting but move on.
Well, let me tell you the deeper part of the story. Ever since I was a child, I always knew that I was meant to make a huge difference in the world, that I was meant to have impact.
Mm,
I am service minded and impact driven.
okay.
And part of this is a message my mother gave me when I was a small child. She looked at me and said, "I didn't have my children for myself, I had you for the world." That meant something to me, and I never forgot that. But as I grew into a
Mm,
young adult, I was looking for what that was. And as soon as I found this technology matching it to this need, I thought, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to spread this to as many men as I can. No man is ever going to have to be in that deep hole I was in and have to climb out of that pit rung by rung. I'm not going to be their light at the end of their tunnel. I'm going to remove the tunnel completely. And that's what I've now done with sales. I've just mapped it all over. And most people don't recognize sales has a healing component. And here's what I mean by this. If you really want to achieve tremendous results in sales. You've got to be able, and this is almost trite, you've got to dive deep down into not just limiting beliefs, but the trauma that surrounds them.
Mm.
If you don't do that, if your selling is trauma informed, it's going to affect your results tremendously, especially if you're in rapport. Because if you're in a effed up state on some level, even if your surface level is not, in rapport, your client's neurology will sync with yours. They'll begin to feel that. They'll interpret it as danger and they're going to run. They'll either run by hanging up the phone or walking out of the meeting or by smoke screening and saying, I need to think it over, which you're
Mhm.
still going to get. So it's a healing response for you. But in a sense, it's also a healing response for the prospect because often your prospects don't really believe they deserve the change and the transformation that you're selling.
Interesting.
Never underestimate that as something that is almost, I wince at the word spiritual because it's so ill defined. It's almost on a spiritual level. And also, their beliefs about what's possible for them can be very limited. So this is often why you get the objection. It's not spoken. You have to address it. Yeah, it works for other people, but it can't work for me. I've always failed at it, or I've tried this stuff before. And even if your stuff really works, that's going on underneath the surface. Even if they can't consciously be aware of it, what to say, express it. So my system not just doesn't just have some very powerful techniques for subconscious influence to sell decisions and good feelings about decisions because my perspective is you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and feelings about good feelings about those decisions.
Mm.
And additionally, when you can get the prospect to expand their range of possibilities of what they believe they can have, what they believe is possible for them, what they believe they can execute, what they deserve, that is a healing process for your prospect. So the idea of a salesperson engaging in something healing and heroic removes all fear. You can't both be convicted that you are doing healing and doing a heroic act and be fearful.
Mm.
The opposite of fear is not confidence to me. It's the reframe that what you're doing is a not just transactional, but a healing journey as well. Now, this is a bit of a overgeneralization. If you're selling, if you're selling something trivial, it's not going to have a transformational effect. And if it's a relatively easy sale, but you understand what I'm talking about when it's something that really is going to be transformational for the other person or require a large investment of money or push all those buttons. The
Mhm.
big three buttons, Alex, are ego, money, and
Status.
starts with an S, sex. Ego, money, and
Ah.
sex. You would be hard pressed to tell me which is the bigger button, sex or money. I don't know. But anyone, as you listen carefully to what I'm saying, and all the ways I'm sharing it can easily and instantaneously recognize that what I'm saying is true.
Mm.
So,
It's
are you
funny.
catching how I'm
Yeah,
putting in the hypnotic language?
it's
I'm
funny.
stepping on it.
y- It's funny you say that, the money and sex, because literally I was listening to a podcast last night and this guy was saying, he's like, all politicians are either power hungry or they're sex hungry. He's like, that's pretty much just it. He's like, I'd rather have the sex hungry ones though, because they're less crazy. I was like, I thought that was kind of funny. Uh,
I think they go hand in hand.
Definitely. So you kind of discover this technology, as you called it, with Megan, and where does life take you at that point in time? You feel like now you have this thing that maybe is sort of your calling or sort of a thing that you can help serve with. And I think it's really interesting that you talk about service because I think some people would be like, dude, you're like helping guys, get laid, like service. Come on. But where does life go at that point in time and how do you begin to formalize these ideas?
Yeah, well, what happened is my business partner at the time said, you should teach seminars. And I said, what the hell am I going to teach a seminar? I wrote a small little book. He said, you're Ross Jeffries, just read from the effing book. So we started doing 2 3 hour seminars, charging $45. I don't remember what it was at the time, but we packed the room.
Did
We'd
the
have like 200.
did the book get
Yes.
pretty popular immediately? Or, like, how did you
Yes.
market this
Well,
book?
here's
I mean,
what
it's a
happened.
great
Here,
title. I know you
here's
think
what
that.
happened. Here's what happened. I I studied with the world's greatest copywriter, I believe, who ever lived, Gary Halbert. And Gary taught me how to write copy. So what happened is I started going on all the TV talk shows in the 90s. Donahue, these names will not be familiar to you. Donahue, Geraldo, all these people had tens of millions of people watching.
Mm,
So there was a magazine that used to be the Bible of every radio and TV talk show called Radio TV Interview Report. I had $500 in my bank account. I rolled the dice, paid $450 for the inside right hand page, full page ad. And the ad said, "Women hate nice guys," says sex book author. Interview the man who turns wimps and geeks into supercharged macho studs. Gary Halbert would have glowed with pride. And may he, if he's up there or down there and he's hearing this, Gary, thank you for this. You made me a fortune and changed the lives of so many people. The orders started piling in. They would send checks back then, no credit cards,
mm,
to the point where my building manager said, "Look, you're running quite a successful business, but they can't deliver your mail. You're going to have to get a business address." And that's how I took off. I rolled on that gravy train for about 5 years.
wow.
And around 1994, one of my fanatical students said, "You need to get in the World Wide Web." I said, "What the hell is that?" And he said, "Well, it's this thing." And I didn't understand it. So we grabbed seduction.com,
Oh, wow.
uh, where people still go today to grab my private coaching and my courses and etc. And at the time when I grabbed seduction.com, I had no idea where it would lead. No
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
And so that was the first big chunk of fame. Then the competitors started coming up. Then Rolling Stone did that story in 1998 and again exploded. I exploded again. And then 2005, Neil Strauss wrote The Game. That book has made me, even though I don't get royalties, at least $750,000 in sales, all free. I never in my life paid, well, with one exception, with the, like $1,500 I spent and got back 10 times that, had paid for advertising. I did it all on free publicity.
Mm.
Now, the market has changed. You can't do that anymore because you have so much competition for eyeballs. Thank goodness. It's such a pleasure and an honor to do a long form podcast. People nowadays have a focused attention span of what, 30 seconds,
Yeah,
60
exactly.
seconds?
Yeah, just
How many
scroll,
times,
scroll,
be honest
scroll.
with
Yep,
me,
yep.
how many times have you scrolled and checked on this thing? It's a dopamine addictive. It's designed to be that. So you're
Mhm,
competing with the brain, the part of the brain that gives rewards. So
mhm.
you have to create focus very quickly, which is, and tell me if I'm talking too much.
You're
Tell me,
fantastic,
interrupt.
brother. This is great.
Okay. Okay. So this is the other thing that's lacking in traditional sales trainings. Not rapport, I get it, but the problem is focus. Nowadays, you don't have the old time you used to have, spend 10, 15 minutes establishing rapport.
Yeah,
You don't have it
yeah.
because your prospect doesn't have the focus. You have to create focus before rapport. And so I have some specific phrases and words I'll give. I'm happy to share it with the audience today, if you'll allow me the time.
Certainly.
So this works across all platforms, whether it's one to one to many, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter what industry you're in. And this is going to sound a little strange because it is strange. That therein lies the power because it is so different. If I were beginning a sales presentation, I wouldn't say, "Well, today I'm going to show you XYZ." And what may excite you the most is it does X 10% better and brings returns, and it's an easy to use platform. Your employees will enjoy it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's get started. Who's excited? High
Right.
five your neighbor. God, all the stuff that makes me want to kick someone,
Yeah.
punch someone in the head. So instead, I'd say something like this. I have what I call implied relationship words. before we begin our exploration together today, and I just invite you to please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is made. Now, listen to those words. We, not before I
Mm-hmm.
show you, before we, that's two suggestions of togetherness. Before we begin our, that's another word. So that's three stack suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Exploration. Alex, exploration is a profoundly hypnotic word.
Mm.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you use that word in the proper context, in the right order, it's very powerful. And here's why. First of all, explorations imply novelty. The brain is drawn towards novelty. But equally importantly, for every exploration, there must be a leader, correct? And for every leader, there must be what?
Followers.
Student. Exactly. So as soon as on the unconscious, subconscious level, your prospect gets the implied suggestion that they are your followers, followers go beyond rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Followers give you clients
Mm.
because you are the authority. If you define authority as someone who has certainty where you do not, then you become the unquestionable authority. And this sets up the frame, the emotional filter, the subconscious filter for the entire rest of your selling process. So that anything you do, as far as your facts, figure, data, offer, is filtered through that.
Mm. Let me ask you maybe a silly question, but is this kind of what cult leaders historically have done? They've kind of built this idea,
No,
not in an ugly way, but just like this kind of like
no,
programming
it
for
is
an
ugly.
individual.
They do it in a much different way. I've studied cults
Okay.
because I had a family member. I don't want to get sued, but who is in Scientology, and so I took a deep dive into cults. I actually joined a cult for about 3 months just to see if their stuff would work on me and if I could catch them out. They wound up kicking me out within the first 3 weeks because I was calling them out. So that's a different story. So let's stick a pin on it
Mm-hmm.
in it to get back to it. The cult leaders, yeah, they use hypnotic techniques for sure, but they also do things like public confession, where you talk about your most embarrassing, shameful moments.
Mm.
They use group peer pressure, shaming,
Mm.
emotional roller coastering, where they take you, they build you up, and then they rip you down.
Mm-hmm.
They use covert hypnosis, guided visualizations that are actually hypnotic inductions, et cetera, et cetera. But you'd be surprised how little of it is actual hypnosis. A lot of it is sleep deprivation,
Mm.
stuff that's classically taken from the Korean War that the North Koreans used
Mm.
and the Chinese used.
Mm. Okay. All right. So you published this book, and it's a huge
Oh,
success.
did you want the cult story? Did you
Oh,
want the cult story? Should we
yeah.
let
Oh,
it go?
I would love to hear the cult story. Yeah.
So 7 years ago, it was around November, and business was slow, and think all my friends get out of town. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I thought these friends of mine were pressuring me, telling me about this leadership academy. And
Mm.
I thought, okay, I know what's going on here, but let's go and see what they're doing.
Yep.
And the first day, I picked up on them using some embedded commands very poorly. I'm thinking, dude, if you were in my class, I'd send you to the back of the room, make you face the wall, and think about your stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
But they were throwing this stuff in. Lunchtime, the trainer goes, Paul, come here. I said, what's this? I don't respond to this. I'm not a dog. He said, well, I would like to talk to you. I said, that's better. He gets right in my face. I hold up my arm. I said, hey, you're in my danger zone. You're in striking distance and kicking distance. Step back. And he looked shocked, but no one's ever talked to him this way. He takes a step back. He says, what do you think you're doing here? I look at him and I say, I'm evaluating you. He said, how dare you evaluate me? You don't have 30 years experience doing transformational work all over the world. And I thought, I got this fucker. And he
Yeah.
said, well, as a matter of fact, I have 31 years experience.
Uh,
But to his credit, he didn't blink an eye. He didn't blink an eye. He said, Well, not in this container using this technology. So you're either going to have to put your need to be in control aside or get out. I thought, I spent $3,000. There's no refunds. I might as well stick around and see what these idiots have.
Mm-hmm.
They wound up kicking me out. And subsequently, I went into the private Facebook group. They forgot to block me. And I posted a long post exposing every technique. It stayed up for 48 hours before they blocked me. But the damage, thankfully, was already done. Subsequently, and I'll finish the story because we have a lot more stuff that's of use to your audience. Subsequently, I met with a cult leader because she was terrified of what I was saying on Yelp,
Mm.
and she said, well, the only reason you feel you were manipulated, you've spent a lifetime teaching men to manipulate women, so you're projecting.
Oh,
I said, there you go again. You're trying to undermine my self-trust and my self-judgment. That's exactly what you do. That's not teaching leadership. That's teaching self-doubt and becoming a human sheep. Get out of my face. And she got up and walked out.
amazing,
That's the story.
amazing.
And yeah, that's personal power and speaking truth to power and exercising true authority.
Well, it's interesting that it feels like you understand what they're trying to do. So anytime they're trying to encroach on like your authority or your leadership or your autonomy, like the old like come here with your finger. Like no, I don't respond to that. Whereas most people would just
No.
be like, well, what do you want, man? Like,
And here's Alex, here's how this maps over into sales. If you don't hold the frame that you're the leader, that you
mm-hmm,
don't need them, then there's a power dynamic in any human interaction.
mm-hmm,
People don't want to acknowledge it or are unaware of it, whether it's sales, sex, love. There's always a power dynamic, and it's either going to be you're in the power seat
mm-hmm.
or it will default to the other person being in the power seat. Very rarely, thank God, whatever that runs the place, you meet at a place of genuine equity and equality and mutual sharing of the power.
Mm,
It's given up, it's taken back. That's very, very rare. So
mm,
you have to establish that frame early on. So if I can unpack that with specific languaging,
mm-hmm,
if someone said to one of my clients, why should we go with your firm? Most people would begin to show, well, look, here's our statistics. We've grown the money. We've managed this much portfolio. They'd start bragging, which is a disguised form of begging.
mm-hmm,
Bragging is in the wrong, it's a disguised form of begging. Bragging equal begging.
mm,
Instead, I teach to say something very vague, something along the lines of, well, Mr. Jones, I can't be the one to say all the ways you might stop and find the reasons that feel right for you to go with us. But as that's taken place, I can only invite you to share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision's being made. Now, what did I just do? I was so vague, I threw them back into a search into their own unconscious and set the frame that they have to give me the reasons.
mm-hmm,
I didn't say it. I didn't say it, Alex. I didn't say, well, I'm not the one who needs to convince you. You need to convince me. You give me your reasons. I didn't say that,
mm-hmm.
but I suggested it. I set the power frame, turned it all around when the client or potential client was trying to do it to me.
And is that kind of the basis for like attraction, male female attraction? Because that's kind of what I told you. I don't know a ton about this, but I know a little bit. But is one of the like sort of base core level ideas that you don't want to be the guy that is chasing the pretty girl because she always has. This is what I came to understand.
It's a
Those
pattern interrupt. It's a pattern interrupt.
yes.
First of all, you should never feel that you have to chase to be chosen or perform to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
That said, there is always an element of performance the first time you connect with someone.
Of
There
course.
just is. That's how the game works. The peacock spreads its feathers, the bird does its call. We're hardwired to do it as males. We
Mm-hmm.
just are.
Yeah.
And women are hardwired to present themselves to look more youthful. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just laying on my model. Nothing I say today that has been said or will be said is true with a capital T. It is not science, although some of it is science adjacent.
Mhm.
It is my model, my map that has worked for me and tens of thousands of people I've trained in seduction and thousands that I've trained in sales. So, yes, the answer to your question is yes, but a lot of it is the power of suggestion to create states of consciousness like deep focus, a sense of not just connection, but having known you their entire lives,
Mm.
arousal, desire, doing things that you normally wouldn't do
Mm.
because you just feel like this is for you. You want to do this. Making everything seem like it's now, dilating time so the past shrinks into nothing, the future becomes insignificant, and now expands to include all time and space. They did an
Mm.
experiment called training the time sense, where they hypnotically removed people's sense of time and
Okay.
made everything now. And all social inhibitions were lost. People were willing to do anything. They did all sorts of crazy stuff.
Hmm.
It's very advanced hypnosis that even I struggle to do. I can do it with the right subjects who are willing and know what's going on. But the book is called Training the Time Sense
Mm.
by Milton Erickson, and I forget his co-author.
Mm. Okay.
It's
Interesting.
advanced shit. If you're a beginner or mid level, forget about it. You will not understand it.
Mm. Okay. So you write this book. It's really, taking you in your career to a different place. Are you just it while the book is selling, are you just like living off royalties, or are you doing seminars at the same time, or do seminars come
I
later?
start doing seminars come a little bit later. We start touring around the country doing 5, 6 seminars a year, cranking cash. I'll tell you a story. I don't remember the exact city. If memory serves, and I'm getting old, it doesn't really serve. I think it was Chicago. We used to sell VHS tapes and books in the back of the room.
Yep.
And one day at lunch break, I said to my partner, "Hey, X, how much cash do you have from today's sales?" He said, "So far around 10 grand." I said, "Give it to me." He said,
Uh-oh.
"What?" I said, "Give it to me. I'll bring it back after lunch." I went up to my hotel room, I stripped naked, and rolled around in the money.
Ah, gave it back to your buddy? Oh, brutal.
Yeah, I did. And there was nothing missing. So we were coining money at the time because no one else was doing this. If you looked up seduction on the internet, the only thing that came up, seduction.com. There was nothing else.
Yeah, I was gonna
So I didn't
ask
get,
I was gonna ask, was there any competition, or do you feel like you're kind of the
not at that point.
first person to
No,
put at least
not until, so I went from 1988 to 1999 without any competition.
that's a good thing, but at the same time, competition is helpful, pushes you to get better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I wasn't prepared for it. I thought that gravy train would keep going. I didn't. I was so myopic and in a good way, so obsessed in my head in the clouds with the technology. To how can I keep improving this? How can I wasn't looking at how can I get ready with the infrastructure and the sales structure and the marketing when competition comes along. And by the way, TV talk shows no longer pull the ratings or they change so crazy. I was on Jerry Springer 3 times, way
Mm,
back in the 90s, before it got violent. It was about Bigfoot got my daughter
yeah.
pregnant with on an alien ship. Nah, nah. I didn't have the foresight because I was so uh, crazy with ego and power and money and also with a loving intent as well. The two went hand in hand.
Mm. Did you draw any inspirations from, like, past historical, like, seduction artists, or was it all just like, I
No,
took this NLP
no.
and this is the tech, and I've just applied it to a field that guys haven't seemed to have applied it to?
Yep. The latter. No, no. There is no model or inspiration for me. There is no one. There was Richard Bandler who taught me NLP, and again, my mentor, my late mentor, Gary Halbert, who taught me copywriting,
Mhm.
but which used to be enough. But copy is not a marketing system or a business.
Mm. Okay, so get a little technical for me. So what did young Paul not understand about dating and attracting women that after you get kind of the handle of this thing, and you go, oh, geez, like all the ideas that I had about this thing, because I've told some of my friends about this, and they're like, that sounds like that wouldn't work, and it's like, okay, whatever, because I still think a lot of guys, I don't even know where they're programmed to this, but it's like I have to like prove to the girl that I'm worthy. I have to pay for her dinners. I have to like suck up to
I
her.
don't know if this is, I don't know how much we want to talk about seduction, but I would rather talk about my sales training. But you're the host, and this is an interesting story. So we're going to keep going with it
Yeah.
until you say otherwise. I, in my particular case, I didn't have good role models for communicating with women. I won't
Mm,
get into it. But my father, God bless him, I'll never be half the man he was.
mm,
He was a decorated combat medic from World War II,
mm,
fighting the Nazis on the front line, drawing people out under fire, shitting his pants with fear, but never running away from his duty.
mm,
That said, he was a terrible model for dealing with women. And
mm,
my brother, older brother, had no clue. And so I would have technical and database conversations. Did you know the United States has 1,000 nuclear tipped missiles with a circular error probability? And I just didn't get it. That said, Alex, I didn't realize it too many years later. There are women who were attracted to me, but I was so ashamed of my body. I'm 6'2", 220, a lot more muscle than I seem to be. Back then, I was 6'2", 130 pounds.
mm,
So I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. I had tremendous shame. And even though those women were attracted to me, I pushed it away because of the intense shame, just the thought of getting naked and another person seeing my body.
mm.
And that was those were the big problems. I was also intensely nervous. And when you're young, your balls are boiling, as my dad used to say. And when you're in that state and you can't control it, then you either suppress it or you flood, neither one of which is appealing. So I had to learn state control. I had to learn to be uh, um, more emotionally broad myself,
Mm,
all sorts of skill sets, which apply in sales too. They
mm.
all map over into selling.
Yeah, don't worry. I definitely want to talk about sales. I just think
Oh
that
no, I'm
you're.
not worried.
I want to hear the whole journey. I want to hear start to finish, and
I get
like
it.
um,
I get it. I
because
get
yeah, I
it.
mean, not only that, but I love to hear the story of businesses, and like this sounds like it was a phenomenal business, and it
It
still
was
is
a
a great business.
phenomenal business.
But you had this
Um,
kind of 10, 12 year era where it was like, this is I'm the only person doing this. This is unbelievable.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine that where you're the only TV channel? You can charge whatever you want for advertising. Can you imagine being the only candy company? You'd have to come up with various different varieties of candy, but you had a monopoly on it. Uh, it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. And I was very, very famous. My During the period of this, I had a couple of girlfriends, but one of them, we were at a seminar one day and people were literally following me down the street. She turned around and said, "Leave them the fuck alone. How would you like it if people were following you?" And we kept getting recognized. Even on a cruise we took, there were ladies coming up and wanting my autograph. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, 4'10" powerhouse. We're still friends to this day. She also teaches NLP and influence.
Hmm.
She said, "One more woman talks to you and wants your autograph, you have to buy me a pair of, I forget the brand of shoes. It was the most expensive kind. And you need to buy me 3 Louis Vuitton bags." And sure enough, and damn, she was very tough. She made me, she enforced that agreement.
Jeez, that's fascinating, man.
Yeah.
How have you seen?
Being famous, one quick thing. Being famous is great, but it's not what it's cracked up to be because it can feed very dark corners. I went into some very dark places. Fortunately, I had the foresight and the insight to go, you're going to go to some bad places. Surround yourself with people who will call you on your bullshit.
Mm,
And to this day, my team, every member of my team knows that if I seem to be going off track or coming from a place of stupidity or arrogance, there to correct me. They get bonus when they correct me. I create a genuine structure where power flows both ways. In any business with the people who are on your team, you have to be genuinely emotionally regulated.
hmm
You have to know how to emotionally self regulate which is another skill I teach to my sales clients. If you don't emotionally self-regulate, you can't have a good team because you can't create a structure where power genuinely flows in both ways. If your employees feel unsafe, they're not going to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or they'll passively aggressively sabotage. And then I don't care how good your system is or your scripts, and I do teach scripts, believe me. But if you're in that place as a leader and you don't know how to be emotionally self-regulated and deal with your own crap, which is part of what I do with very high-level sales team leaders.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do that, you can't really create as effective as a team as you could otherwise have.
Well, I mean, that's pretty thoughtful of you. I'm sure it wasn't your first instinct to have people around you that weren't just
No,
yes men, but most
it was
superstars,
pretty
celebrities,
quick.
yeah,
It was pretty quick, Alex. You'd be surprised. It was pretty quick.
yeah, because you see that a
And
lot
because of
with.
my mother, I'm sorry, I stepped on you.
No, I was just gonna say, you see these rock stars that have people around them that, oh, dude, keep going, you're kicking ass. That's fine if you do a little coke. It's fine if you do a little bit of this, and then, nobody wants to like get cut out of the circle for being like, hey, like Paul, dude, this is not good for you. You got to quit this. Oh, why you being a downer, man?
No, 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 no. My mother said to me, I used to sass my mother all the time. I remember sassing her at a very early age, and she bent down. She said, "Hey, kid." When she was pissed, she didn't call me Paul. She called me kid. She shook her finger and she said, "Watch out for your Achilles heel." I said, "What's that?" She said, "Achilles' mother wanted him to be invulnerable." I said, "What's that?" She said, "It means you can't be hurt." So she took him by the heels and dipped him in the river Styx.
Mm-hmm.
But the heels were left uncovered. And so he was killed by a poison arrow in the Battle of Troy. I said, "Oh." And so I got the lesson sooner or later that
Mm,
my mother implanted in me. Thank you,
mm,
Mom.
mm. So how have you seen this kind of this seduction world change then? It sounds like you sort of began it in the United States and now it's a huge industry. Like I see, now there's the online dating which has become so prevalent and that's like somewhat of a different technique, but I imagine everything's still very similar. When I was doing online dating, I would still try to apply some of these same ideas where I'm not going to like try to seek your attention. I'm going to do it the opposite way, where I'm going to try to get you to seek my attention, vice versa. But what's your take on that?
Here's my take on it. It has gotten to the point where anyone who can set up a YouTube channel, a TikTok, can declare themselves an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is fake video footage of them approaching and getting a kiss from a woman within a minute. And they're models and actresses. I know from the inside that this is the case. Not always the case, but often. So it's metastasized into this bizarre, the metaphor I use, if you remember the classic film Frankenstein, there's a scene where the villagers are carrying torches
Mm-hmm.
and they're chasing down the monster. Well, it's turned into a situation where they're not chasing the monster anymore. They're imitating the monster and becoming the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And the other villages get the virus from that village, and it goes on and on and on. So it's filled with a lot of people who are hucksters or people who mean well, but they're a copy of a facsimile
Yeah.
of a sham of what I taught 20 years ago, and they still don't understand it. I had an attorney in the 90s who said, "Paul, you need to sue all these people copying you." And I said, "Adam, we wouldn't succeed. And anyway, I can create faster than they can copy,"
Mm-hmm.
which was true at the time. It's no longer true.
Interesting. Have you found anyone that you actually feel like is being a good steward of this information or has innovated and said, you're like, I see what Paul was doing and I've added these things, which I think work as well, if not better, and kind of continued to push the ball forward? Or do you feel like the original thing that you learned was like so foundational, it's like the fundamentals, if you will, that everything else now is maybe just, additions and fancy moves to go with the fundamentals?
I haven't I haven't seen anyone who's improved on my work.
Okay.
I swore years ago to stop looking at what other people were doing. I
Mm,
just there've been a couple of instructors who I used to partner with, and I still think their work is great. It's nothing like mine. We went our separate ways on good terms. They just wanted to promote their own brand, and I get it. But for the most part, I just don't look at what other people are doing. It's not useful to me and to what I'm doing. I just keep my head focused on my lane, what I'm doing, and I no longer feel the need to attack other people or to praise them or to partner with them. I just let them be. They approach me. I've had offers to buy Seduction.com for a couple of $1 million. I said, nah, I don't, talk to me later when I really want to go live on a beach. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the beach that much. I would live on a nice island in Stockholm,
Oh,
Sweden.
all right, all right. Okay, so talk to me about some of the fundamental core principles that whether I'm a man seeking a woman, or I'm a salesperson trying to prospect, or I'm just trying to have a good interaction with, I'm a podcast host, talking to someone who I hope will become a friend. Like, what are some of the core foundational things that people can start to think through? Maybe not even implement, but start to just try to conceptualize.
Sure. So, first and foremost, your state of mind.
Okay.
What state of mind do you want to be in before you take any action? That's the first thing.
Okay.
Everything flows from your state. That's number one. And we can unpack these one by one.
Yeah, please.
Second, don't think of the behaviors that you want from the other person. Buy your course, sign up for your sales training, whatever it is. Think in terms of what emotional states you want them in, such that it is natural for them to give you those behaviors very easily or with as little effort as possible on your part.
Mm,
Everything flows from state and emotion. So that's very, very important. Learn to create states and first and foremost, focus. They have to be able to focus on you. They have to learn to trust themselves. See, know, like, and trust used to be enough. It's still necessary, but it's not sufficient. You have to learn to rapidly get the prospect to trust themselves to make a good decision. Otherwise, and this is why if you're listening to me out there, you're at the top 10%, you're or 20%, and you're just barely moving the needle, or and you're running harder to stay in the same place,
mm,
you're probably missing that element. How do you create the prospect a state of self-trust in that prospect very rapidly?
mm,
States of focus, states of self trust, states of clarity, and sometimes states of confusion. In any good sale, in any good seduction, there's a time to be confusing, even shocking, and
mm,
confrontational,
mm.
which is again contrary and counterintuitive.
Right.
I can unpack that if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, let's start with state. So let's say I'm going into an interaction, and how am I going to prime my state? And what's my goal? What am I shooting for, essentially?
I'm shooting for body relaxed,
Okay.
body relaxed neutrality, meaning I'm interested in the sale, I'm invested in my skills, I'm not overly enthusiastic. God
Interesting.
bless Tony Robbins. He's brought NLP to the entire world. And Tony, I think, fundamentally makes a mistake. Not for him. If you're in front of an arena of 40,000 people, you need to keep that energetic peak state up.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But if you're in a peak state of enthusiasm and emotion, and you're dealing with a prospect or an audience, or you're doing it through a recorded medium like video sales letter, you're going to freak people out.
Mm.
What matters is neutrality, being grounded in your body, breathing from the belly, turning down the internal dialogue. This is why I teach meditation techniques. If you're going ratchet, there's only so much real estate in consciousness. So if you're going ratchet in your head with that internal dialogue, you have to learn how to quiet it. And I teach 2 or 3 techniques to do that. So the internal dialogue is turned down, you're focused outward, your body is relaxed, your beliefs are I'm either going to make this sale or I'll learn what I need to learn to do better next time. Second, I choose, I can, will, and do choose and decide the meaning I extract and the learnings I get from each and every interaction I have with a prospect.
Mm.
And third, invested in the skill and just interested in the sale. And a breakfast of bacon and eggs, as I like to say, the pig is invested. the chicken is interested.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you're especially in sales, but I guess seduction also, you're not identifying with the result of this thing. You're just saying, "Hey, this is interesting. I gained information about, what worked, what didn't work." Um, that's
Update.
yeah.
You know, the Mossad, which is arguably the Israeli intelligence service, which is arguably the best in the world, teaches its agents that when something goes south, update. I just got an update.
Mm,
Or I just got an upgrade. Now I'm blanking on whether it's update or upgrade.
mhm,
I think it's update. Just got an update.
mhm. So you need to
I failed.
reconfigure your model for, okay, that particular thing did not
Right.
work. All right. So it's sort of almost emotionless. I've heard it. There's a book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and they say, if you hit a ball out of bounds, um, for your opponent, that was a good thing. That was a win. And for the referee, that was neutral. So for you to say, oh, it was a bad thing, well, it's like that's your internal viewpoint of that. So it sounds like you're kind of getting at like, don't take
And
that internal viewpoint that it's a negative necessarily.
that it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to have processes to make it real in your neurology.
Okay.
And again, I think the distinction I have is having come from a background of training men who were so damaged and so traumatized, where I had to manage my state or I would get exhausted by feeling their trauma and take them out of it into a neutral state, training them to control their own neurology, the most fucked up, damaged people you can imagine, bringing them into a state of relaxed, neutral information gathering confidence, having learning confidence, not performance confidence.
Mm,
So people talk about confidence, and particularly what I teach my VIP sales clients is this: there's different kinds of confidence. There's performance confidence. You've walked that tight wire 10,000 times. So even though you're cautious on every walk, you have a reasonable expectation based on a huge pool of data that you'll do it right the next time.
mm,
The problem is you can't have performance confidence if you're new or if the market is changing so rapidly. What you used to do is just barely moving that needle.
mm,
Remember that I'll keep coming back. So instead, I teach learning confidence, where you absolutely know through techniques I teach that you can learn from your mistakes rapidly.
mm,
Instead of taking 3 steps forward and then sliding back down the first time something goes south. So if you ever felt that personal improvement feels like a drag or it's difficult, or there's a part of you that's self-sabotaging, it's not true. You're not a self-sabotager or a loser. You just have a shitty learning system. You're
mm.
learning by dwelling on your mistakes. Alex, you ever make a mistake and you dwell on it?
Sure.
Here's what's happening. You're not doing that to hurt yourself. Your brain is trying to make meaning of what you're doing, but unintentionally, whatever you dwell upon, whatever you rehearse in your mind over and over by dwelling on it with a big emotional charge, especially linked to one of those 3 buttons: ego, money, sex.
Mm,
Your brain can't tell the difference between what you're dwelling on and what you're rehearsing for it to do. So, is it any surprise that the next time you're in the same situation, it keeps repeating the behavior?
mm,
No, because you programmed it to do it, not because you're a bad person or you lack some mysterious substance called self esteem and you're 5 quarts low and some coach has to drill a hole in the top of your head metaphorically and fill your tank up
mhm,
and charge you a shit ton of money, but because you have a shitty learning system. And this is another distinction. I am blowing my own horn here, because I had to learn to teach men who were constantly dwelling on mistakes to stop doing it and develop a rapidly powerful learning model where they could learn very rapidly from their errors. Bringing that over into the sales world where people are already much more competent than guys who haven't been late in years
mhm,
is a very powerful component. It's necessary. I don't know of anyone else who teaches the technology for learning rapidly from your mistakes. I
mm,
just don't. Maybe it's out there and I'm being arrogant. I haven't seen it, but then again, I'm not knocking let me put it this way. There are a lot of good systems out there. The Sandler system has been around forever. It's proven, it's tested. Remember, you used to fly on the airlines, they had actual magazines, and Sandler would advertise a full page. I don't know if you have any familiarity with Sandler.
Not sure I do.
Great stuff. Tony Robbins has great stuff. Richard Bandler has great stuff. But again, a technology for learning from your errors without false positive thinking that's not based in reality, that's delusional.
Mm,
I'm great. I'm going to do it right. I'm the best salesperson in the world. Yeah, your unconscious mind is going, no, you're not. We have all these memories of when you fucked up.
mm,
And so the human mind is naturally valence towards looking at mistakes.
yep.
When you were in school, teacher didn't grade the pay. Well, I'm from an era where you had paper tests. They had big red X's next to everything you got wrong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We are hardwired as a species to look for error and danger.
Yeah.
That's what kept us alive. And so, unless you know how to fight that hardwiring or bypass it, circumvent it, and create new neural nets, new neural pathways, and new ways to learn, you're just going to be running in place, or change, improvement is going to internally feel more exhausting, and it's going to be a lot harder than it needs to be. It can be easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something that I felt like I never was very good at, was like cold approaching women, like at a bar or at a, whatever. I'm at the gym and I just see an attractive girl and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to her. I never
I
got
never approach.
okay.
I've never approached a woman in my life. I never approach. I only extend the gift of my powerful masculine presence and extend opportunities to connect with me in fun and powerful ways. Look at the language. Look at how our language fucks up our behavior.
Mm,
The minute you say cold, it implies a gap between you and that person emotionally, energetically. It implies that they're going to reject you. And when you say approach, it's saying, there's a distance between us. They're in a different boat. They're in a superior level than I am. They're going to give me my self worth, my value, like you're a beggar. You're
mm,
not begging for coin, you're begging for sex. But if you say, I offer the gift of my grounded, powerful, joyful, masculine presence, and I extend opportunities to connect with me in fun and powerful ways, you can't be afraid when you're extending an opportunity. You're extending a gift.
mm,
They don't exist in the same world.
mm,
So I am not selling. I'm extending an opportunity to expand the range of what you can do and to do it with a lot more ease than you ever thought imaginable.
mm-hmm,
So, and I teach my clients to take on that mindset.
mm-hmm.
That's what sell with suggestion is all about.
Yeah, no,
That's what my system is about.
that is very astute, and that changes the frame from like, oh, like I'm the one, forcing my way into this situation, from like, I'm here. And also I think this is what I sensed in dating was when I felt like I was chasing the girl, again, I'm in the weak position, she has the power of choice, but when you flip that on its head, then the girl has to chase you in some way, shape, or form. Like, it's exciting for her. It's like, oh, this is like fun. Like, I have a challenge that I have to overcome.
Hey, you know what? Even though I've retired from it, if you want to plunk $100,000 into my bank account for like 90 days of coaching, I can talk about it. I'm not going to give that out over the air. You'll just have to find me on Google.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so you said the second thing is
And
not.
I wasn't joking. That's the starting bid.
Yeah. So I saw, or I heard you say, you're not seeking behavior, you're seeking emotions out of the person. So what does that look like when you enter the
Yeah.
interaction?
Yeah. So again, if I'm going into a sales situation, first I have to be in the right state. That state of neutrality, outward focus, my mind is quiet, and I teach techniques for that.
Hmm.
That's first. So I'm in an information gathering state rather than an outcome pressure state.
Okay.
Second thing is I need to create that state of focus in them very rapidly through a process of suggestion. I need to create that state of self trust in them. I need to create that state of compliance.
Mm,
Those are the things I aim at first, not enthusiasm, not excitement, Those will come later. I aim at those. See, and how do I do that? I can tell you how I do it. If you would like to get the language in, I'm happy to share it. I want to
Yeah.
share value.
Yeah. No,
Look,
I would love to hear that.
your audience is giving me something precious. Your audience is giving me, and I really mean this from the heart. You folks out there are giving me your time and focus, which is the most precious thing. Particularly, I know you have a very successful following. That's a beyond a gift. That's a blessing you're bestowing upon me. So I'm going to give as much as I can here. So here's the specific language. I would say, before we begin this exploration together today, I don't know all the ways you might stop and naturally feel a growing focus the more you grow interested in what it is we're sharing. But as that's taking place, I invite you, please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made. The key there is those last three words. The four words, a great decision is being made. It's so vague. I didn't say a great decision that you're going to make to buy my product, sign up for my software as a service, whatever it is. I didn't say that. I said a great decision is being made. It's so vague and even so confusing that the unconscious the human mind does not like confusion. So it will go into a state of suggestibility. The unconscious mind will have to begin to churn and make sense of it. And the unconscious mind will go, okay, a great decision is going to be for me to move forward, and I'm going to do it because of this, that, and the other thing. But consciously, I'm not going to be aware of it. Consciously, they just get a vague sense that they want to move ahead. Now, you're still going to run into all the problems of self-trust, a little bit. You're also creating self-trust. When you say a great decision is being made, the implication is they can trust themselves to make that decision. I'm not saying it. I said, Mr. Smith, as you continue to focus on me, I'm going to have you count. I'm going to count backwards from 3, 2, 1. And when I do, you'll enter a state of compliance and self-trust, unlike anything you've had before. 1, 2, 3, wake up. That's bullshit nonsense. You can't do that. But you can have the same hypnotic effect through the skillful, artful use of confusion and suggestion. Confusion at the right time is extremely powerful. Not when you're presenting the facts and data and figures. When it's time to present the return on investment, or if you're doing financial services, I have some clients. I'm not industry specific, but I'm currently working with a client in the financial services business. And I trained his team, who's already doing fabulous, to know when to be vague and when to be specific. So there's a time to be vague and confusing, which is, again, totally contrarian. Have you ever heard always make the message clear?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Jeannie Labordi wrote a book on it called Make the Message Clear. Not anymore. Not anymore. Now you have to have times where artful confusion and being unclear is powerful.
Why is that?
Because there's times where you have to have the prospect fill in the blanks for themselves. Here's another fundamental core principle I teach. Whatever you can get the prospect to imagine for themselves will be perceived by them as being their own thoughts and decisions, and therefore they cannot resist it.
Yeah, Inception.
That's why.
Great movie and great idea.
I never saw it, believe it or not. I should go and watch it.
Oh man, that's like one of my all-time favorites.
Never saw it.
Well,
I never saw it.
You know, what's funny is I have never seen Magnolia, which allegedly is a character that played you, right?
It's not alleged. Paul Thomas Anderson, who wrote and directed the movie, clearly states it in creative screenwriting. He clearly stated it. He said, Frank Mackey, I was inspired by this guy, Ross Jeffries. To his credit, Tom Cruise and Paul Thomas Anderson fleshed out the character and worked on it very hard. But the original inspiration was from my Ross Jeffries character. So the irony is, here's the irony. They were basing something built on a character that someone had created, not on the person
Right.
himself.
Right. Yeah, it's character of a character. Well, I'll tell you what. I will
Exactly.
I will vow to watch Magnolia if you vow to watch Inception, because man, that's a great one.
Done. Done.
So you're saying these suggestive terms to people. You said like we and exploration. Are there
Our together.
hour together? And I've actually heard it said
Share.
that I think I just read this in the Effective Executive that effective executives say we, us together. They don't say like I'm gonna drive the ship, and then the sales team is gonna. It's like no we, because you're creating this cohesiveness amongst the team. It's sort of like you're alluding to. Then people all believe they're part of a bigger thing. They're not just I'm a cog in the wheel. That the
Correct.
CEO has a me agenda.
Correct. Correct.
Mm.
Correct. And so I didn't do it this way. And I didn't do it this way. And that's one of the big parts of NLP is looking at what people do who are highly effective, looking at their language, breaking it out and seeing how they use it to create specific effects. These people do it naturalistically. They're
Mm.
naturals. I train people who are naturals to be even more effective, and people who are effective but they're not naturals, so they really need polishing and big upgrades.
Mm. And is that one of the things that you see from people who aren't naturals versus, they're just seems like one of those people that are born to sell, or they're born to be everybody's best friend? Is it those subtle changes there? Is it energy? Is it the specific words that they're using?
It's all of those,
Mm-hmm.
all of them, all of them.
Mm.
And I happen to believe that even if you're skilled, even if you're born hardwired, I do believe some people are hardwired for certain things. I have a friend, Misty. Misty is an extraordinary musician. She can play any percussive instrument. She knows how to play things from the Amazon jungle to electric drums. She can do anything. And any kind of stringed instrument, she immediately picks it up. I can play. She can play. I said, Misty, can you read music? Can you write music? She said, no,
Mm.
I can't read music to save my life. I just hear, I learn, I do.
Mm.
I could never have that talent. I
Yeah.
don't care how many people train.
Yeah.
But Misty has been doing it for decades.
Mm.
So even people who are hardwired have to put in lots of work. They do over and over and over, and they love it.
Mm. Yeah. So linguistically, what are the shifts that you would coach people on making? Is it just certain words? Is it certain patterns of speech? Is it just trying to keep that frame that I'm in charge, I'm managing this interaction? Maybe just talk us
All of
through that.
them, all of those things, all of those things. Understanding how to create your states of consciousness in the other people, understanding the frame that you're never selling your product or service. You're
Mm,
selling decisions and good feelings about decisions.
okay.
If you felt a little ick factor around selling, then consider yourself a decision service technician.
Mm,
It's a great reframe.
mm,
It's a great reframe because in a sense that's what you're doing. And also the idea that you're expanding consciousness. You're not just getting suggestions into the client's mind, you're expanding their consciousness to include your ideas and new possibilities. The idea that selling is about states of consciousness.
mm,
So I teach the concept, then I take these people who are already doing extremely well, but they want something unconventional, and I teach them how to. I don't change sales processes. I don't do it. I don't touch it. I take their already successful sales process and I show them how to inject these concepts and these specific language patterns into each stage.
mm,
And my favorite part is handling objections because that's where you do a lot of a great deal of beautiful hypnotic work. You do pattern interrupts.
mm,
One example is that thing of I need more time to think it over. I showed you the pattern interrupt there. Or if they say it's too expensive, they're expecting an argument or let me, well, I understand, but have you considered the return on investment? I'll shock them. I'll say expensive compared to a steak dinner. It's beyond expensive. It's an obscenity. which creates what? And understand, with the right agent, you're not paying a fee. You're investing in skills,
Mm.
the very skills that you need to get the returns that you really want. That on some deep level, you recognize it's the only way to do it.
Mm.
So I create those states of suggestibility by interrupting the pattern and or redefining the meaning. I teach all these things: pattern interrupts, reframes, all of it is required. But I don't interrupt your sales process. I don't step on what's working. I amplify it, and if I see something that's not, then we can take a deeper dive.
Yeah, I think that's
Is this
interesting.
making sense?
No, yeah, it is, where you're reframing like cost to investment. Just simple things like that a lot of people in the sales world
This is
understand.
I learned this. I learned this dealing with women very early on,
Okay.
where a woman would say, give me your number." Now, what do most guys do when a woman says, "Give me your number"?
Great. Here.
Or they try to convince her, "Well, come on, give me yours. It's just going to be one date." But no, I learned to interrupt patterns early on. So I learned to reframe the meaning, interrupt the pattern. So when she says, "Give me your number," I'd say, "Now, Debbie, why would I put the burden of making sure we get to connect again on your shoulders? Isn't that my work as the man?" And then I'd
Mm.
hand her my phone. So what
Yeah.
is that doing? It's taking her implication, her frame that I'm chasing her, and I'm making the assumption, oh, she really wants this to happen, but she wants to do the work. No, let me take that off your shoulders. That's on me to fulfill your wish to see me again.
Yeah. Fascinating. Talk about objections a little bit. You mentioned that there's a bunch of these ways of overcoming objections. Is it almost like not even handling the objection, reframing it?
Erasing them.
Yeah.
It's objection amnesia. It's doing essentially a hypnotic effect. Shock, interrupting patterns, confusion create temporary windows of suggestibility through which you can lead your prospect.
Okay. So show
So I'll
me.
give you another example.
Yeah, please.
Um, let's say the prospect says, "I need to talk to my spouse."
Okay.
That can be a valid objection. It's not, in fact, it could be not an objection whatsoever. It's a point of leverage. So I would, instead of immediately saying, "Well, when would be a good time to talk to them?" which can work,
Mm-hmm.
that can work. But if you really want to be super effective, switch it around. So when they say, "I need to talk to my spouse," I say, "I agree. It's important that they also get on board with us so they too can see a great decisions being made."
Mm.
So thinking about it like that, what's the best way we can get them on our team?
So then you two are working as a team together now, and this person's joined your team, and now they're like, well, I think what Dave would want is he would want to understand the return. Okay, got it. That's good.
Okay, so why don't we, do you think would it be possible for you to naturally feel comfortable and enthusiastic? Hear the suggestion? Feel comfortable, naturally feel comfortable and enthusiastic. Getting them on the phone, like maybe now, or what would some other time work better? Now, instead of feeling pressured, because you've framed it that you're already on the same team, and it's not a matter of pressuring the wife or the husband, it's about getting them, or the significant other, it's just about getting them on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't want to be on the same team?
Yeah, I think it's.
It's a reframe and a suggestion.
Can you talk maybe just for a second about like how powerful um, some of these reframes and suggestions are? Because I know probably people listening almost like are in disbelief, but just that little thing where you
They
said,
should be.
yeah,
I don't blame them.
yeah, but just what you said there, well, okay, like yeah, like how do we get Dave on our team? How do we get your husband on this team together? And now I can just imagine, me hearing that and be like, well, what would I have to tell my fiance to be interested in this? And now it's like I'm ideating on your behalf. And maybe I didn't even
Correct.
want the thing. I'm just like, well, what would I have to
Correct.
do?
The subtitle of my book is How to Get Your Prospects to Convince Themselves to Buy.
Mm,
That's what ultimately everything I teach is leading to. The
Yeah.
prospect convinces themselves.
And ultimately, like, what is that nail in the coffin for the convincing yourself that I need to do this thing?
I don't understand the nail in the
Well,
coffin
just
metaphor.
like,
Could you switch that
well,
up?
yeah, like, what is the like, what steps are necessary for you to get the prospect to a point where they agree, yes, this is the right thing for me, I'm going to move forward? Like, what are the steps along the way that I need to have done properly to get them to a point where they're going, yes, I agree?
Well, first of all, as I said, state.
Hmm.
Get yourself in the right state. I know I'm being repetitive,
Nope.
but this is different. So repetition is required. But beyond that, pre-screen. Pre-screen. I pre-screen anyone who wants to learn the sell with suggestion system. I pre-screen them.
Hmm.
I pre-screen them psychologically. I have to be able. Let's say I approve their application and I get them on the call. They have to agree on the application that they're looking for something unconventional. So screen before you even start the selling. That is the start of the selling process.
Hmm.
Get in the right state. Decide what states of consciousness do you want that prospect to be in.
Okay.
And first two are focus, self-trust, compliance. Notice I didn't say rapport.
Okay.
Rapport is only necessary in so much as it serves compliance. I want them to comply.
Hmm.
I want them on the unconscious level to view themselves as followers. So you're going down that route, that process. Then and only then can you begin to ask the questions that teach you more about what your prospects' dreams, hopes, desires are, where their stuck points are, where their bottlenecks are.
Hmm.
You have to do information investigation, exploratory phase. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
And that's pretty traditional. It's just the language that surrounds it is creating the state where they feel enthusiastic about answering
Hmm.
and they feel comfortable revealing where they're confused
Hmm.
in an unuseful way. If they're confused about the outcomes you're going to get them and how you're going to get them there, then you need to unpack that and be clear. Is that making sense?
Hmm.
Then you pre-frame it so they're open to understanding the offer. You present that, and then you handle objections. Throughout the whole process, you're controlling your state, you're guiding them through these different states of consciousness, and you're using languaging that I teach. I do teach scripting, but it's scripting that's customized towards what you're doing, and it's teaching the process of hypnotic language.
Mm.
I don't want my clients ultimately to parrot what I teach them. I want them to incorporate it and make it their own through a process that takes about 90 days. But it does require work. I'm going to back up and say it's not for people who are lazy and it's not for dumb shits.
Mhm.
Get my stuff. You have to be exceptionally smart
Mm.
because it is a contrarian way of thinking.
Mhm.
It really is. If you don't have well, look, I'm talking to very successful people. You've got to have a hard work ethic, a good work ethic anyway. And in some ways, you have to be smart. Not necessarily academically smart, but you have to have street smarts and people smarts.
Mhm. Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. At what point would you say that a sales rep or a person who's selling has done sort of the amount of necessary, like, bricklaying, if you will, to get to the point where they go, I feel confident in asking for the sale or moving the interaction forward? Are there things that you feel like you need to get the prospect to say, that's right, or not necessarily?
Again, I want to keep bringing it back to the point of being nauseating. State, 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 state.
Hmm.
Get them in all of these states. And then you don't even really have to ask for the sale. Like, okay, are you ready today?
Yeah.
You're at the point where essentially you've cleared up everything. You've made it clear what the transformation is going to be.
Hmm.
And then you say, so is there anything at this point that you need to be clarified before we move ahead?
Mm.
And let them answer you. At that point, if they say, no, I'm ready, go, great. Let me present to you the way it works. Here's
Mm.
how it works. Here's the structure. This is the investment. And then I always say this phrase I learned from a champion salesperson, I lean back, and even if it's just on an audio call, I lean back because it gets transmitted.
Mm-hmm.
So, what should we do?
Mm.
And I shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't want to stop yourself from getting the sale at that point, right?
Shut the fuck up.
Amazing. Paul, is there anything you feel like we didn't cover about the sales world? I mean, I know we could go, on for hours and ages of this, or anything about, your journey that you feel like was super influential on you that we didn't cover, that would be, interesting or fun for people to understand.
I want to come back to this. I've invested conservatively close to $1 million in coaches, systems, training,
Mm-hmm.
etc. It was only the ones that seemed batshit crazy to me at first, and even were batshit crazy, that produced transformational results for me. Not
Interesting.
little, oh, occasionally I got a date, or my sales happened to jump this month by 5%. I had to really take a deep dive into batshit crazy, contrarian, etc. And to that end, if you will permit me, I do have something I created just for the audience of this podcast, because you have offered me a platform and your audience has offered me their focus and attention. I have something of value I'd like to share, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So I've created this exclusively for people who are your audience. And what it is my subconscious selling domination system.
Mm.
If you are someone who's ready to break through that ceiling that's kept you stuck with something totally unconventional, you don't want to have a light at the end of the tunnel. You want to remove the tunnel, stop moving the needle, but regain momentum, dominate your market again. That's who it's for. There's two components. One is my instant trust quick start training.
Mm.
Those 5 or 6 words I talked to you about, expanded with specific examples. It's a 10-minute video training. Then I have my subconscious sales conversion vault. This is a private collection of all these language patterns that I've developed over the last 20 years teaching VIP clients. I normally only give this to my 25, 50K private clients. I want to make it available to your audience. You cannot buy it. I do not sell it. The only way you can get it is going to sellwithsuggestion.com/entrepreneur.
Beautiful, man.
Sellwithsuggestion.com
Sellwithsuggestion.com. Well,
forward slash entrepreneur.
I can promise you at least one or two people will claim it, because I'm going to claim it, and I'm going to get my sales rep that I told you I just hired, our first ever sales rep. So I'm sort of doing my own deep dive
And
right
I
now.
want you on my show, damn it. So let's have a green room chat.
I
I
would
want you on my
I
show.
would love to come on. I would love to keep going, because I get the sense that what you just said in 90 minutes is not even 1/1000% of the stories and life that you lived. That could be a
Yeah.
5,000-page book probably, if you could remember, everything that happened. So I would love to hear more about
And
you and your life.
and you know what? I owe my success to my team. I would be nowhere without my team and my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I offer what I'm doing is not just training, it's mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
My mentors, Richard Bandler, Gary Halbert, my meditation mentor, Shinzen Young, who transformed my whole definition of what it is to be human.
Mm.
My mother, who was a great mentor to me, uh, one of the most brilliant human beings I know. I've done a lot. I've really worked my ass off and pushed the frontiers of what's possible in these two areas of life. And without my team and my mentors, I couldn't have touched this, couldn't have done it. No way. So, and also without people like you who help me spread the message, I don't have the platform that you have.
Mm.
And your audience who's opened their minds to me and shared their time. Think about that. These are busy, successful people. They're not schmucks
Mm-hmm.
sitting in a mother's basement. So thank you from the heart. Really, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for lending me your focus and your time.
No, thank you so much on a Friday
Crazy.
night, no less, hanging out with me instead of, your friend's family, your girlfriend, fiance, wife. So I really appreciate you for that.
Not
Uh,
this Friday, but yeah.
yeah. Seduction.com. It's still yours, you said. Looks like there's still a variety of different trainings on there. Sellwithsuggestion.com/entrepreneur. I really appreciate that. Are there other places for people to catch up with you?
I don't do the seduction training anymore. Again, unless you're willing to pay an application fee and you've got anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 that you can easily point down, don't bother going there. I mean it. Go to sellwithsuggestion.com/entrepreneur. Or if you want to buy the domain and you have a few million to throw at me, you can do that too.
It's a great domain. Let me just ask you like a short question. Why do you feel like moving on from that field? It seems like you've been so successful in that field. Is it just not exciting any longer?
Because I've done it to the point, yeah, it's boring. I like novelty. I've done enough. I've taken off, I've come down off my cross. Sorry to insult people, thrown away my cape and stepped into the fabulous world of being ordinary.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. You feel like you've contributed a lot of what you have to give to that field, and more of you is not necessary. So, thank you so much, brother.
But if you got $250,000, to throw my way for seduction training,
find
me, Google me.
Yeah. I guess you could be swayed for $250,000. I could be swayed to do a few things for $250,000 too. Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate you, man. This was awesome.
It's been my honor. Let's talk off air about getting you on my show.